On our broadcast tonight, a strong new aftershock in Haiti, a new reminder 8 days after the quake of how dangerous and grim it still is. Also tonight, a big story here at home, the Massachusetts message. An upstart Republican wins Ted Kennedy's longtime Senate seat, and the voters were heard loud and clear. The Wild West, wind, rain, mud, and worse, a wave of storms pounding California, and there's more to come. And hooked on electronics, is it bad for kids to spend so many hours per day dealing with their various devices? Nightly News begins now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. Tonight we continue our coverage of the disaster, the unfolding human suffering going on in Haiti, except this evening we must begin with a big story in this country, a development that may affect this nation's foreign policy, healthcare policy, perhaps the remainder of the Obama presidency. It happened in Massachusetts, a special election to fill the seat of the late Senator Ted Kennedy. All the analysts were saying it was a shoo-in for the Democrats. Problem is, they didn't ask the voters, who elected the Republican instead, who represented something new. He is now Senator-elect Scott Brown. So we begin tonight here in our New York studios with our political director, Chief White House correspondent Chuck Todd. Chuck, hard to believe it happens on the one-year anniversary of the swearing-in of President Obama.
It's almost like a Hollywood plot twist. You know, the name Martha Coakley may someday be simply a footnote in history, but in Washington today, for the president, she stood for a symbol of voter anger.
What a great crowd, and I bet they can hear this cheering all the way in Washington, D.C.
Everyone in official Washington heard something, but what they heard depended on who they are. For Republicans, Scott Brown's surprise upset was all about one issue: health care.
The people of Massachusetts have spoken for the rest of America. Stop this process.
They don't want the government taking over health care. They made that abundantly clear last night.
When the people of Massachusetts stood up and said, enough is enough.
But the president said his party's loss was about something bigger. In fact, he told ABC that the same voter sentiment that got him elected president in 2008 swept Brown into office Tuesday.
People are angry and they're frustrated, not just because of what's happened in the last year or 2 years, but what's happened over the last 8 years.
Still, White House aides admit it was at least partly about health care.
What we've heard from folks around the country, we will take that into account and then we'll decide how to move forward. But it's not an option simply to walk away.
The president also told ABC he still wants some version of health care reform passed quickly. Brown's campaign also focused criticism on the president's management of the terror threat. And today, the conservative website The Drudge Report began touting him as a presidential candidate. So who is he? He will be the first senator in history to have posed nude for a woman's magazine, back when he used his income from modeling to help pay for law school.
This is Ayla.
If his daughter looks familiar, that's because she was a finalist in the 2005 American Idol season. His wife is a Boston TV anchor. He's a career Massachusetts politician who has towed the Republican line, though today at his first press conference as senator-elect, he proclaimed independence.
And maybe there's a new breed of Republican coming in Washington. Maybe people will finally look at somebody who's not beholden to the special interests of the party and who will look to, just to solve problems.
I'll tell you this, the atmosphere in Washington, particularly inside the Democratic Party right now, Brian, is toxic. Lots of arrows being slung from one side of Pennsylvania Avenue from Senate Democrats and House Democrats who are now second-guessing pretty much everything that the president and his team led by Rahm Emanuel are doing.
Now, everyone's saying what this means is, when reduced all the way down, the death of the president's health care initiative. What do you think? Game it out. What do you think happens to health care?
The next 48 hours are sort of duck and cover time for the White House. In fact, I've talked to some aides and they admit it. They actually compare it to that 48-hour period after they lost the New Hampshire primary, when suddenly they were geniuses the day before. They lost to Hillary Clinton. They said, we're going to take our lumps for a couple of days, let them get it all out of their system. Friday, the sun will come out, they hope, and they can have another conversation about this and possibly figure out a way to take that Senate bill maybe and get it passed in the House, avoiding another Senate vote, or truly doing some sort of slimmed down version. but they feel like they've expended way too much political capital to give up now. So they do believe they're going to pass something, and something soon. They can't let this drag out.
Chuck Todd is our NBC News political director, chief White House correspondent. Good to have you on this night here in New York with us. And when our broadcast continues in just a moment, they were on the White House tour on a perfectly normal day, but a big surprise was waiting in the next room.
He's a lovable. Yeah, well, he's going to see it.
Tomorrow on Today, a tragic Hollywood story. Actress Brittany Murphy's family remembers her in life and speaks openly about her death. Only on Today on NBC.
That was then. It was a year ago today, the inauguration of Barack Obama on the National Mall. At the White House today, the First Lady marked the occasion.
How are you?
Oh my goodness.
So good to see you. Oh my goodness.
This is a dream.
Hey,
Michelle Obama and first dog Bo surprised the citizens who were minding their own business walking along the White House tour this morning. She set up an impromptu receiving line. Bo behaved very well. White House cameras showed it all live. White House also marked the anniversary by releasing some new imagery. It's all on their website. Some of the still photos of the president and family over this last year, all taken by White House photographer Pete Souza. The one at the end of the series shows the Obamas seeing off their guests at the end of the state dinner back in November, which brings us to the Salahis, the couple known around the world as the gatecrashers at that party. They were called to testify before Congress today, but it became immediately clear they aren't talking. That's their right, of course, but Congress doesn't have to like it.
Did you receive an invitation in the mail to attend the White House state dinner?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully assert my right to remain silent and decline to answer your question.
Were you invited to the White House to the state dinner?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully assert my right to remain silent and decline to answer your question.
Have you ever attended an event at the White House?
On advice of counsel, I respectfully assert my right to remain silent and decline to answer your question.
So let me ask you a question. Were you there?
On the advice of counsel.
Are you here today, Mr. Salahi? Are you here right now?
The circus pretty much continued like that. Meanwhile, a grand jury is investigating whether or not the couple broke any laws. When we come back here after a break, can the rules be bent to get the children out and into loving homes in the U.S.? The effort to help and adopt the children in Haiti. That's our broadcast for this Wednesday night. Thank you for being with us. I'm Brian Williams. We sure hope to see you back here tomorrow evening. Good night.